I'm sorry, I just read that one line.
This one's a doozy?
No, I can't believe it's yogurt, I can't. Sorry. Won't give it away yet.
You could read it when it's time.
You think the people who came up with that name would just be like, in their meeting, they'd be like, hey, that sounds a lot like I can't believe it's not yogurt.
I just picture like them in like a meeting and no one can agree on anyone, and there's just like this one guy's just like, oh man, I can't believe it's yogurt. And then they named it.
Or it's just like, what about those commercials? I can't believe it's not butter.
That's what I keep thinking every time.
We're gonna do the opposite.
The opposite.
I can't believe it's yogurt.
I can't believe it is yogurt. Maybe that's what's messing us up. The emphasis.
Yeah.
I can't believe it is yogurt.
Join a cult, children.
Worship Satan. Murder people.
Satan, cults, and aliens.
This is the story of the yogurt shop murders in Austin, Texas in 1991, where 4 teenage girls were murdered.
I'm already, wanting to know what the fuck happened.
Yeah. Ready for this, though? The weird thing is, there are over 50 confessions, and they still haven't solved who did it.
And why it's called the yogurt shop murders.
Well, I will tell.
Is there any enlightening information there?
Nope.
Just
So
what
it
they
happened
decided
at a
to
Circuit City in... So I'm going to take you back to 1991, December 6th in August.
Okay, you be my doc, I'll be
I said December
Marty.
6th in August. I meant in Austin.
Did you get my reference?
Of course, that's one of my favorite movies. Okay. Okay, so Austin, December 6th, 1991. I can't believe it's yogurt. In my mind, I keep saying I can't believe it's not yogurt.
That's the name of the place?
That's the name of the yogurt place. I can't believe it's yogurt.
Why?
ICBY for short, I think. It's a frozen yogurt place. Jennifer Harbison and Eliza Thomas, they're both 17. They worked at the yogurt shop. They were the only two working that night. Jennifer's 15-year-old sister Sarah and her friend Amy, 13, went to the shop to help them close and get a ride home because the 4 were planning a sleepover for that night. For some reason, that piece of information just breaks my heart every time. They went there, all 4 of them were hanging out because they were gonna have a sleepover, all 4 of them together that night, which I can't. So then the store was supposed to close around 11, and then right before midnight, a cop's driving around and he notices flames. So, the firemen come, they extinguish the fire and all of this stuff, and when they go inside, they discover the bodies of the 4 girls. But it gets more strange. 3 of them were stacked on top of each other. All of them, their clothes were taken off and they were gagged and tied with their own clothing. They were stacked on top of each other, and they were also all shot in the head. Yeah. Some other things to note is that at least 2 of the girls were raped, and there was at least 2 different guns used to kill the girls. Because of the fire, and they didn't know that there were people inside, and obviously they were extinguishing the fire as quickly as they can, but because of the fire and what they used to extinguish it, most of the evidence was gone, burned or washed away with the water.
Do they know if it was more than one person, or?
Well, they believe it probably was more than one person, considering there's, it was 4 girls, but also because there's 2 different guns, they believe, at least 2 people were involved in it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there was over 50 confessions, which is weird because why would so many people confess to something they didn't do?
Mm-hmm.
And within those confessions, why haven't the police got anyone at all?
Yeah. Which is already unique in itself. What murder case has more than like one?
Yeah.
Right?
Or any, yeah. One of the first suspects was a serial killer called Kenneth Allen McDuff. He's one of the people that confessed, and he actually confessed. So he was a serial killer, and I think he killed teenage girls, and he was in the area at the time of the murders. Mm-hmm. So, like, and he confessed, like, he was getting executed that day, and he confessed. It doesn't really get into detail, but the police ruled him out, and, I mean, I'm guessing he probably confessed on the day he was, like, being executed because he didn't want to be executed, because,
wanted
like...
to go to trial or something.
Yeah, he wanted, like, you know, them to be like, oh, wait, don't, you know, maybe we could get some information on this. That's my personal opinion. I'm not really sure why they ruled him out, but they did. Now we come to the main four. So in 1999, it was almost 8 years later, 4 men were arrested for this crime. Robert Burns Springsteen, Michael James Scott, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Wellborn. So for me, the weird thing is I was trying to figure out, like, what led the police to them specifically, but I couldn't, and, you know, maybe I'm just, like, reading the wrong articles, but I couldn't figure out why the police were led to these specific guys 8 years later. Like, how did they tie into this? I'm not exactly sure. But then charges against Pierce and Wellborn were dropped, and Springsteen and Scott both made confessions, went to trial. They were found guilty of capital murder. Springsteen was to receive the death penalty, and Scott was sentenced to 99 years. One of the detectives in this case was, like, known for coercing confessions out of people. You know, it's said that he, like, kind of coerced a confession out of these guys. So one of the detectives, he's seen holding a gun in the interrogation room, a gun up to, I believe it was up to Scott's head as he was interrogating him. So it's like, if somebody's holding a gun to your head saying confess, I think you're going to tell them what they want to hear. It's so fucked up, because, like, why waste your time, like, not only sending innocent people to jail, but you're also, like, the killer's out there, go find, like...
expediting the process, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't actually solve anything.
No, I know, I'm just saying, from that point of view, like,
they wanna...
being lazy and wanting to just pin somebody with the crime, right?
In 2008, there was new evidence discovered, and it's actually unknown male DNA that was found on the youngest victim, Amy, and it actually, they tested it against all 4 of the suspects, and it didn't match any. Because the DNA did not match any of these boys, they actually, their convictions were overturned and they were released.
So how were there 50 confessions? Who were all the different people that were?
It seems like just people, it's so baffling, like, why did so many different people confess to this?
Was there any information you found about
why there are so many?
Yeah.
I mean,
who it was or something?
Possibly because of, I guess they're pulling guns on people and, like, forcing them to do stuff, but there was, like...
But that's a really unusually
it's
high amount of people.
Unusually
like
high
5
number.
or 6, maybe, given this case.
Yeah. But we already know, like, the serial killer, you know, confessed for his reason, and they confessed because it was, like, forced out of them. But yeah, they don't really go into detail. It just says that at least 50 people confessed to this. So the 2 men were released from jail, and since then there have been no more arrests.
I'm all fucking ready.
So before I jump into the Reddit comments, I wanted to, since this case is full of, like, so much weird open-ended things, but, like, absolutely no answers, I just wanted to point out some really weird things that I found while researching this. One of the things is that in 1994 they get the insurance money from the fire and everything, because obviously But that was actually, that like $12 million for a yogurt shop, people were pointing out is like an extremely high number, like to have, like why was it insured that much?
Yeah.
You know, it was just a yogurt shop. I read that about like the average number for that type of shop would have been like $1 million.
Yeah.
So that, you know, raised a lot of red flags for a lot of people who are like, why, you know, what's happening here? Like, one of the strange things that's a little more difficult to talk about is that Amy was actually alive when they went inside and found. She died shortly after, but the gun used to kill her was actually the one gun that was different than the gun used to kill the 3 other girls. And the one used to kill Amy had the same type of bullet. It was the same type of gun that the government issues. So
That's shady as fuck.
yeah,
Right.
so that made people really curious. One other thing is, and you know, this doesn't have any ties aside from speculation of people, but the day after the fires, the FBI busted a prostitution ring in the home of Austin police officers.
The literal day after.
The day after
that happened.
this happened. Yeah.
Even the honking computer man thinks that's suspicious.
Just throwing, there's a bunch. I just tried to like streamline, you know, some of these to get like different points of view, and we'll dig a little deeper, whatever. So this one person says, corrupt elements within the Austin Police Department in 1991 committed or conspired the deaths of those 4 girls as a terrorist attack to distract the city from their own why can't I ever say that word? I said it before.
Malfeasance?
Malfeasance.
I don't know. Your fancy vocabulary, whoever you are. That's pretty elaborate though, right? As
Yeah,
a
there's
terrorist attack?
so there's actually like this whole, it's like this document that's pages and pages and pages and pages long. I read the first chunk of it, but pretty much some people believe that, you know, the Austin Police Department, so apparently it is true that back in the 90s the Austin Police Department was kind of corrupt, and it was just like, people describe it as like a shit show. Like it was a mess. Like,
So it's not always been the hippie utopia we believe.
Nope.
it is? No.
so some people, believe that the Austin Police Department was actually covering for it, and I mean, terrorist attack is a pretty big word, but pretty much they did that to distract, because I read some things about how the FBI was actually looking into the Austin Police Department, which makes sense if the day after they busted a prostitution ring, but like they wanted distraction from like their shady shit that they were doing.
Yeah.
That's what some people believe.
Which just kind of begs the question of how exactly, if it was a big conspiracy or a fucking conspiracy without something, how would these particular girls have anything to do with that, right?
Yeah. So one other person, there was actually a lot of people that commented on this from Austin that were like there at the time, or like really young, and they like remember, you know, hearing about it and all this. One person said, I was at the drug-fueled culture clash party that night a few miles north of the shop, watching a then unknown Pantera. I always found that weird. Worked on the drag, and the police would stop and question any PIB person in black clothing. Probably because they were desperate for leads, or assumed the murders were somehow related to Satanism. This was right after a Satanic Panic of the 80s.
As one does.
As one does. This is user McDrunkAgain. It's their handle. I mean, I think it's far-fetched, especially because, like, this is miles away.
I like how they just threw that in there at the end, like, or they just assume the murders were somehow related to Satanism.
I mean,
you know.
Pantera makes me want to go to Panera.
Wants me to-
Pantera, what?
Were you involved in some Satanism when you were younger?
No, but I used to sing their songs.
Bruce Springsteen said,
Can I just say that one guy's name's Springsteen, which
It's very
everyone thinks
confusing.
of that. Another guy's name in this is Michael Scott, which...
Oh God, what?
Yes.
So any Office fans out there. Springsteen said that he confessed because he was tired and wanted to go home and thought his confession would be thrown out if there was no physical evidence linking him to the crime. He wasn't just a little tired. He was working a full-time job and remodeling his house after work and on the weekends, as he had been doing an 80-plus hour, why can I not say that?
You got it, buddy.
So he had been doing 80-plus hour weeks of physical labor for a couple of weeks. Then they took him to the police station and kept him in an interrogation room for over 24 hours. He claimed coercion at his trial, but he was still convicted and sentenced to death. The second guy who went to trial got luckier. There was a video of his interrogation that showed the cop pointing a gun at his head. The cop claimed that it was unloaded and he was just using it as a prop to demonstrate how they held the gun to one of the girls' head while committing the crime. But nobody bought that story, so his trial fell apart, and since his testimony was used against Springsteen, his conviction was overturned too.
Skizniks. But that just got a little bit into why, you know, a theory of why they, or, I mean, it makes sense to me of why they would have confessed to something like that, like, especially, like, 24 hour, people are put into solitary confinement to make you go, like, cuckoo, so if a police leaves you in an interrogation room for over 24 hours and then, like, just pushing you to confess to something, like, you know, some people are like, why would you confess to something you didn't do? But, like, maybe trying to go through all the shit they go through and
Then decide, right?
So one person said, the police department, incompetent and borderline evil behavior made me want to fucking scream. I actually just really like that sentence, which is why I included their theory, but they botched the case from the word go. I agree with a previous theory that it was an older experienced criminals who pulled this off. Well, I don't want to read that last line because the illegal alien thing.
Yeah, I like that some of these comments, like at the end, they're just like, and then satanic cults or an illegal alien.
Like, you had me until, like,
this random
you're
ass
random
thing that
or
you put
racist
things.
or, like, somebody else compared it to another crime that happened in North Carolina, and a person commented on that saying, you know, perhaps it was somebody in the military, and one of the reasons why people brought military into this is because when these girls were murdered, the killers actually brought accelerant with them to start to make it go up. And at the yogurt shop there was styrofoam cups, and apparently I didn't know this, but lighter fluid and styrofoam cups together equal napalm. Which they're saying people in the military would know. I don't know anything at all about napalm, but that's really interesting that even just the fact that, like, even just the fact that they brought the accelerant with them, you know, knowing that they were going to start a fire and burn this down.
Yeah.
Some people said, like, other people in the area kind of seem suspicious. One person said,
From what I've read, the owner of the shop next door, a party store, seems suspicious, and I think he should have been looked at more closely. He claims to not have heard anything alarming, and the girls may have dropped their guard around him, which allowed him to control the situation. Nothing about this seems like a robbery. User, I'm making my lunch.
Nothing about it seems like a robbery is one point that I really wanted to talk about, though, because the more you think about it, because police were saying, like, oh, this was a robbery gone bad, but, like, if you're going to rob a store, you want to, like, go in, rob the store, and leave with the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to hang around to undress 4 girls, sexually assault them, shoot them in the back of the head, pile them up, and then take everything from the store and it was said in some news articles that they took like things from the store and like piled it and then put the lighter fluid on it and then lit the fire. Like, if you're gonna rob a place, you're gonna go in and out and get the money and get out of there. You're not gonna spend all this time committing a bunch of other crimes. So Rocket Market says, speaking about Amy, it's worth mentioning that she was the one who was shot with a different gun. It's worth mentioning that the police officers forced the firefighters to stop fighting the fire and leave the scene for a while. This was deeply unusual, of course. There's never been any official explanation as to why they did this, but it's worth noting that the bullet the fourth girl was killed with matched the caliber of bullet fired by Texas policeman regulation sidearm. So I didn't read anything about what Rocket Market said about the police told firefighters to leave the scene.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how accurate that is. If it is accurate, that's really weird. Unless there's some sort of explanation.
Yeah, and how much authority could they have to tell the firefighters to get out of a burning building and stop fighting a fire?
Yeah.
And how they would follow those orders, right? I would
Yeah.
imagine, and given that situation, they'd be like, go fuck yourself, we're gonna stop this fire.
So I think this case is so strange because there's like so many people involved, no answers to anything, but like really weird and random things. These really weird questions that there's like absolutely no answers to. The FBI, this case is actually like come back into the news and everything because the families feel that the FBI is actually withholding information about the DNA.
And then I feel like last week too, there was another case that we talked about where actually it was weird coincidence that both the cases we were talking about, there was because of what happened to this person, there was a new law or a new regulation that was created. Like an entire police force was created in Vermont.
Yeah.
Because of Paula Weldon, I think her name was. Yeah, and then your case too.
Yeah, Kristen Smart and the campus police has, in all California schools now. This one's hard to think about and whatever, all I can say, I have absolutely no clue who did this and why, but I'm hoping with like all, DNA technology is like advancing like every day, and they're catching killers using like familial matches from those like ancestry type.
Yeah, I learned about that from that TV show.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a really good one.
Yeah, and because when I read YSTR, that was the same DNA test that they
That they did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
To find the guy.
Yeah, and I know they did that with
serial
the
rapist.
Golden State Killer. They tested it against somebody's like DNA kit that they did, and it was like a distant relative, and it led them to this. So
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that we know that FBI has the DNA, and hopefully they take the actions to like actually finally find who's responsible. On that note, I don't know. It's a fucked up world. I'm depressed.
That's why we're drinking
That's why we drink.
whiskey while talking about these things.
Do you have a sip left?
No. Minute amount. Okay. Anyway.
Okay, bye.
Bye.